Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajaka Acharya Ashtoto to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajaka Acharya Ashtoto to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 28th day of February 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 5 entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, text 21 on page 248. Bhaya Sparsheshu Asaktatma Vindati Atmani Yat Sukham Sa Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. Okay. Bhaya Sparsheshva Saktatma Vindatyatmanayat Sukham Sabrahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukhamakshayam Bhaya Sparsheshva Saktatma Vindatyatmanayat Sukham Sabrahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. Bhaya Sparsheshva Saktatma Vindatyatmanayat Sukham Sabrahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. Go ahead, Tapas. Bhaya Sparsheshva Saktatma Vindatyatmanayat Sukham Sabrahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. Bhaya Sparsheshva Saktatma Vindatyatmanayat Sukham Sabrahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. Anyone line? No line. Bhaya Sparsheshu, in external sense pleasure. Asakta Atma, one who is not attached. Vindati, enjoys Atmani, in the self, yet that which Sukham, happiness, Saha, he, Brahma Yoga, by concentration in Brahman. Yukta Atma, self-connected. Sukham, happiness, Akshayam, unlimited. Ashnute, enjoys. Translation. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. Now, he referred to such a liberated person. Before I read the purport, I'm going to read the translation to the previous verse. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. So that's the liberated person he's speaking about here. Purport. Sri Yamunacharya, a great devotee in Krishna consciousness, said, Yadabadi mamacheta Krishna padada vinde Navanavarasadhaman yudyatam rantum asit. Talabadi batanadi sangame smaryamane bhavati mukavikara sushtu nishtivanancha. Quote, since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl with distaste. Close quote. A person in Brahma Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is so absorbed in the loving service of the Lord that he loses his taste for material sense pleasure altogether. The highest pleasure in terms of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under its spell, and the materialist cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person engaged in Krishna consciousness can work with greater vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. That is the test in spiritual realization. Spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. A Krishna-conscious person is not attracted to any kind of sense pleasure due to his being a liberated soul. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I remember growing up, there was, I forget where this came from, this phrase, but it's kind of intuitive. The pleasure principle. The pleasure principle as a motivation for action and getting knowledge and everything else. So the pleasure principle is really there. We are spiritual beings. We're part and parcel of Krishna. And as we hear from the Vedanta Sutra, Krishna is Anandamaya Bhyasat. The word Anandamaya means full of Ananda, made of Ananda. And how do we know? From his activities, from reading about his life, Abhyasat. So we, being part and parcel of Krishna, are also heirs, if you will, to that same nature of being full of bliss all the time. But clearly that's not our state now. We're encased in a physical body, and it's temporary, and as Krishna certifies in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, dukkali mashashratam, that this material world is full of all kinds of sufferings. And even if you do get a little place, spot where you're, okay, I'm not suffering right now, I'm kind of enjoying, it's temporary. And that temporary nature is itself a kind of source of anxiety, obviously. Because no matter how much you're enjoying, it's material pleasure is depending on this body, depending on so many circumstances, depending. And those circumstances will change. If nothing else, you'll get old. And those very senses that you're enjoying are no longer sources of pleasure, but they're sources of pain. So now what do I do? If you don't have any understanding of where real spiritual pleasure comes from, then you're miserable. And so many people die miserable, depressed, like that. So here he's giving a different view here. This is Krishna's, because he's talking about Sukham Akshayam. Sukham Akshayam means unbreakable happiness. Unlimited is one way of understanding it, in that it's much more expansive. Think of, in Nectar of Devotion, we have Rupa Goswami, who's experienced. Haribol, welcome. Thank you. You've increased our attendance by 25% just by walking in the door. So he compares the three kinds of happiness. One is ordinary sense pleasure, which we're familiar with, right? All kinds of varieties. And that says like it's a drop in the ocean compared to the pleasure of Brahman realization. Brahmananda. Prabhupada had one of his first disciples was named Brahmananda. But that Brahmananda, which is the pleasure, two things bring the pleasure. One is the complete cessation of all material pain. Because Brahmananda means you're in your spiritual realm. You're merged in the white light of Brahman. There's no question of birth, death, old age, or disease. You don't even have a material body. So it's the great pleasure of being completely free from all material pain. That's basically it. So that pleasure is like a drop in the ocean of Premananda, the pleasure that comes with unlimited varieties of loving exchange with Krishna, which is what bhakti is all about. It never gets old. It's never like hackneyed. Going out again to herd the cows? Didn't we do that yesterday? Can't we do something different? No, it's not like that. Within the basic format of Krishna's life in Goloka Vrindavan, there's unlimited variety. Every day is new. There's always new games to be played. There's always new ways of teasing Radharani. The whole thing is fresh every day. Nava. So that's the ultimate realm of happiness. And here he's giving Krishna's giving us a little hint of it. And he quotes this wonderful verse from Yamunacharya. Now this verse appears in another purport also. This verse is quoted twice in the Bhagavad Gita. So the story of Yamunacharya, which I didn't know until fairly recently, was that in his youth he was a very brilliant student, and he was in a Gurukul, and he was a top student like that, So there was a contest. There was the king, who had a very intelligent minister. And in those days, a lot of the recreation was hearing debates, amongst different scholars and things on things. That was kind of a form of entertainment.
So even in Lord Chaitanya's time, the Keshava Kashmiri came. He was traveling around, you know, and defeating all these different scholars. He would get a certificate, you know, and he heard about Nimai Pandit, and he wanted to defeat him. Even, you know, he was just a boy, he's 13, 14, 15 years old, but he had his own school. He was so brilliant, you know. Anyway, so that happened there, but in Madhvacharya was, Yamunacharya was much earlier than Lord Chaitanya, hundreds of years. So there was this court pundit who was defeating everyone. So the king said, anyone who can defeat my court pundit, I give him half the kingdom. He was that confident, you know. So various challenges came, they were all defeated. So Yamunacharya comes, he's only like, or maybe there was another prize, because when Yamunacharya came, he was like a 14-year-old boy, you know. And it seemed like, what can he do? All these great scholars have been defeated already, you know. So that's when I think the king offered it. Okay, if you can beat my pundit, then you can have half the kingdom, you know. So he took up the challenge, and forgive me, I forget how he defeated him, but he defeated him in a very wonderful way, and the king gave him half the kingdom. So now suddenly he's a king. He's not a student in the Gurukul anymore. He has a kingdom, and he got into it. I don't know how many years he spent with that, but that's what he's referring to here. That he kind of fell away for a little time from the strict practice of, you know, Gurukul and what he was getting. And so he experienced all his sense gratification. But now here, he's back. So what happened was, years went by, and then one day one of his old buddies from the Gurukul came by, his old, you know, spiritual friends. Said, oh, Prabhu, nice to see you, you know. Said, oh, let's go for a walk. You know, so he took him for a walk, and on that walk, he reminded him of all kinds of nectar shlokas that they used to know in the Gurukul. And Yamunacharya was getting into it, you know, and suddenly he realized, you know, he hadn't experienced that in years. He just kept walking. He left the kingdom, he gave it up, the whole thing. I don't know if he had queen and everything, but whatever it was, he went back to that, and that's when he became Yamunacharya. And one of his disciples was Ramanujacharya. You know, very wonderful. So this verse is a verse of renunciation. He says, even when I think about it, I just spit at the thought. So he's completely renounced. He has vairagya because of what he says in the second line. Krishna padara vinde nava nava rasa dhamma. I'm experiencing, nava nava means newer and newer. Rasa, pleasure, mellow, you know, in relation, serving Krishna's lotus feet. And then rantu means enjoying also. Then ever since that, now when I remember my association with the young women, I remember it just comes up, you know, he says, oh, you know, who cares? He spits at the thought. It's not like he's lamenting, oh, I can't have that anymore, you know. So that's because he's experienced the kind of pleasure that's mentioned in this verse, sukham akshayam ashanti, transcendental spiritual happiness. So that's what's being promised here, but it's dependent on bayasparsheshu, you know, which we couldn't pronounce that. Sparsheshu becomes sparsheshva vasakmatma. That U became a V because of Sandhi rules. Anyway, we won't get into that right now. But bayasparsha literally means touching. The senses contacting the sense objects. That's what pleasure is about. Sense pleasure, you know, sense gratification. Vindati means enjoying. Asaktatma, not attracted to that, because atmana yat sukham, you're enjoying the pleasure within from the soul contacting Krishna. That's the yuktatma, you see? Yoga yuktatma, the soul linked in yoga to Brahman, Supreme Brahman is Krishna. So that's what's being, and the next verse is one of my all-time favorites in the Bhagavad Gita. And they go together. So let's go on to the next verse and then we'll talk about it. Again, you have sparsha. You see, the first line is sparsha. Yehi sangsparsha ja bhoga dukkayo naya evate adyantabanta kaunteya sannateshu ramate buddhaha. And now, this translation has been revised. So you're not going to be, if you read along, you'll see. An intelligent person does not take part in the pleasures that arise from contact of the material senses with their objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of misery, and they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not delight in them. You see that? Okay. Purport. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses with their objects, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Now that is an important sentence. To really understand, we are trying to go from the asat to the sat, right? Asato ma asat gamaya. Oh Lord, please lead me from the asat to the sat. From the temporary, ever-changing world of bhava, bhavasagara. Bhava means becoming, changing. To the eternal world, Satchidananda. No change. You don't get old. You don't die, you know. So that's what Prabhupada is saying here. A liberated soul, one who's liberated from illusion, is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul again agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana it is said, now this is very nice because this is one of the verses about the holy name of Rama. Ramante yogano nante satyanande chidatmani iti Rama padenaso padam brahma vidiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth. And therefore the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. Sound familiar? Okay. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also 551, it is said, okay, so this is Rishabde's famous verse. Prabhupada gave like 20 lectures on this verse. He was traveling around India. Wherever he went, he gave lecture on this verse. Nayam deho deha bhajang niloke Kṛṣṇaṁ kāmā narate vidbhujange tapo divyam bhutakāyena sattvam shuddhye jasmā brahma saukyam tvanantam. So Rishabde is speaking to his 100 sons, including Bharat. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool-eating hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified. And as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. So, this is, now, the reason why these verses are so important, because as living beings, we can see, if we just observe, not just human beings, but everyone in their own way is trying to enjoy pleasure. And if you actually are able to experience it, you want to try to make it last as long as possible. But alas, it can't last very long. You know, whatever, with sex pleasure, whatever. It's temporary, and that's one of the main points of this verse. Adyantavanta. It has a beginning and an end. It's fleeting. How much can you go on eating? How much can you go? You know, if you're in Disneyland, can you stay there for weeks and just go to the rides? No. Morning to evening. By that time, the parents, they're broke and they're tired and they drag the kid away. Let's go back home. Isn't it? It's all temporary. It's fleeting, because the very existence of the tools that you're using to enjoy are limited and temporary. There's a limit to how much you can eat. There's a limit to how much you can, before you have to. No, there's 4 different things, right? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The sleeping is very important, because you can only do the other 3 so long before you have to sleep, right, and get your strength back. So material life is by nature disappointing. It's disappointing. You grow up and you're in the prime of life. You know, your senses are strong, your intelligence is right. You know, and you make some money. You know, there's all kinds of hopes. It seems very hopeful, but you're just forgetting that every day is bringing you closer to you're not being able to have these things anymore. There's this term in English called the fool's errand. It means that it may seem like a good deal to go down this road, but ultimately you're a fool if you go down it, because you're going to lose. And everybody in the material world who doesn't know anything about Krishna consciousness, doesn't know that they're souls and just living an ordinary material life, and in this age of Kali, that's practically everybody. they're all being cheated by Maya. Maya is a you know, this whole idea of a con game, you know, to make you believe that you're, you know, you're going to make a lot of money, you'll enjoy, you know, but ultimately you find, oh, you lost, you didn't get anything, you know. So that's con game. It's going on completely. The whole capitalist world is like that. So why should we fall victim to it, knowing the truth? We know that we have to have faith, right? This is a very important point, and that's why it's important to come in contact with somebody who's actually very advanced. And you can see by their very life that they're enjoying, like anything, the pleasure within. And externally, they may be living an extremely simple life, just like Srila Prabhupada. So austere, traveling around at that time of, you know, of the life, you know, obviously he wasn't, and he had a chance, he had opportunity to say, okay, now finally we've got this Detroit palace, or I have this LA place that I can just live there, I have so many servants, why should I keep traveling? And he even planned that, I'll just keep writing here in LA, you know. But circumstances didn't allow him, you know, and he eventually went to India. And he saw that although India, you know, he spent a lifetime trying to do ISKCON in India. You know, Jhansi, you know the whole story of Jhansi, where he was loaned a building, and he actually started, he got his first disciple there, Acharya Prabhakar, and he learned some Sanskrit from him. It's important. But then eventually the governor's wife wanted to get the building for a ladies' auxiliary, you know, and like, so now the road is out, you know, so he went to Vrindavan. And so many things, he was moving here and there. And never did he give up. Never did he just give up the battle and go, and giving up would be to just retire to Vrindavan, stay there, stop, you know, running to Delhi and printing the magazine, you know, just chant and hear like all of his god brothers and everything, you know, just retire. He never retired, practically. You know, Hare Krishna, welcome. Make sure they have books. Please have a seat. Those benches are very comfortable. Yeah, we're reading in the 5th chapter now, and we can get another book. We have many books. So Prabhupada was moved. He had been given an instruction by his spiritual master, whose 500th anniversary of his birth, not 500, 150th anniversary, sorry, of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's birth is tomorrow. And we were going to have a big festival on the weekend, 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, so we'll be aware of that. And so Prabhupada had taken that order, you know, as his life and soul. Preach in the English language, go abroad, try to spread Krishna consciousness internationally, which had never been done before. And against all odds, he succeeded. Even he said more than he could even have imagined. It was successful. Just 12 years of his last, you know. So, back to our verses. So here, the Yehi Sangsparjita Bhoga Dukkha Yona Evate, that the pleasures that are due to the senses, which is commonly called sense gratification, are the sources of misery. We're on page 249. Yeah. So that's kind of depressing. If that's the only kind of pleasure you know, who wants to think like that whatever I'm enjoying now is going to bring me tremendous pain? What happens psychologically when you're in the midst of that material enjoyment, that you forget all about the suffering. This is a way that Maya allows you to try to think that you're really an enjoyer, you know. But then, boom, it comes back at you, you know. And so many of the pleasures are directly damaging to your body. I saw a thing, and I get so many things in the email. You know, they know I'm old, so I get all kinds of medical stuff every day. You know, you can say. So there was one little note there of all these celebrities who died from lung cancer, mostly from smoking cigarettes. I had no idea that George Harrison was a heavy smoker. He died, you know, 50-something years old. You know. But it's crazy. You know, I used to smoke cigarettes. We're talking about 60 years ago when I used to smoke. I started when I was 15 because everybody else was doing it. I didn't know it. Not that, you know, I wanted to be part of the in crowd. You know, so. Luckily, I never smoked too much, maybe less than a pack a day, thank God. And only for a few years. But today, you know, when I see, there's one of my neighbors, the person who lives under me, is a young lady, you know, mid-30s, but she, apparently the husband says, you can't smoke in here. You know, so if she wants to smoke, she has to go outside. So sometimes I see her, she's out there smoking a cigarette. To be a slave to that, you know, and what is it, you know that it's wrecking your health, but it's got hold of you. This is what addiction is, you know. And that's what material life means. It may not be so obvious an addiction, it can be a psychological addiction. You know, gambling. One of our relatives of a congregational member has got very, very heavy gambling addiction. And it can be just as addictive as a drug or cigarettes or alcohol. You know? So what does that mean? It means that you're so habituated that, just like it says in the end of the 3rd chapter, Bhagavad Gita, right? Arjuna asks, what is it that, it's perfect for the addicts, what is it that forces us to do things that we even know are bad for us? You know? What is that? So Krishna says it's karma. It's this powerful desire, not just sex desire, but all powerful desire. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudvaha, mahashano mahapama vidyanamahi vaidinam. Here's your real enemy, Arjuna. It's this powerful material desire of all different varieties, which, when frustrated, you become angry. This is the result of too much material desire. Inevitably, it'll be frustrated, because the material energy is not going to always be favorable. And then you become angry. And if you can't express your anger, you put it inward and you become depressed, you know, which is another kind of misery. So, Mahashano, Mahapam, is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the living entity in this world. So how can we overcome it? What's the cure? Bhagavad Gita. Okay, that's a good preliminary answer. Prabhupada says in the purport, in that 3rd chapter, he says that this karma is simply prema that has been adulterated, transformed by contact of the living entity with the material modes of nature. Kama is strong desire. So when you read about Krishna's pastimes, there's all this, you know, tremendous strong desire of Mother Yashoda to take care of Krishna, you know, of his friends to play with him and protect him if possible, or get shelter from him. There's all this love. And one of his parents and elders, you know, all of them have a tremendous desire to please Krishna. That's the definition of bhakti, in different ways. So, but when we leave Krishna, we turn our back, we come to this material world, then that's directed toward things in this world. And inevitably it's frustrated because of the time factor, the limitations of the senses and everything. And so that frustration produces depression or anger, and the anger can become like Hiranyakashipu or Kamsa, you know, just wanting to annihilate anything in the way of your sense gratification, you know. And you can see how destructive that is. Krishna describes the 2nd chapter. Dhyayato vshayan pungsa sangasteshu bhajayate sanjayate kama krodho vijayate krodhan bhavati sammoha smriti vibhrama smriti brangshad buddhinashat panashyati. Isn't it? So this is like, it's universal. So dhyayato vshayan pungsa begins with contemplation of the object of the senses, right? The opposite sex and so many other things. So by that contemplation, attraction comes, sangat. And if you continue you stay in association and then it becomes kama, sangat sanjayate, kama. And inevitably, because our desires are unlimited, but our circumstances are limited, we become frustrated, you become angry. I want this so much, but I can't have it. You become frustrated. Kama krodho vijayate. And then he says, krodhat bhavati sammoha. You can completely forget yourself. Prabhupada tells the story in one of his classes how there was a case, he remembered in Calcutta, I think it was, where one brother became so angry at the other brother that he killed him. Murdered. You know, maybe they're 20 years old or something. Maybe the other brother was stealing his girlfriend. I don't know what happened. So then the first fellow got sentenced. You know, he got caught and prosecuted, and he was going to be sentenced to be hanged. So the father appealed to the judge. I've already lost one son, and now this son, please just commute the sentence, so life in prison. You know, but such a disaster Why? Because of some powerful desire that's frustrated, and you do things that you may regret for the rest of your life, isn't it? I hate to bring up my own life, but it's been so long. There were some lessons like that. I remember, I must have been maybe 10. My brother was 14 or 15. He had been playing baseball, and he had a few little trophies on the top of the TV. You know, we lived in a small apartment. So I don't know how it surged up, but somehow we had a fight, and he's much bigger than me. And so it came to the point where he finally found out that I had broken his trophy. I pulled it on the floor, and it had broken, you know. And he was coming at me. He was going to kill me. I thought he was going to kill me. I was screaming and yelling. My mother was at the kitchen table. She couldn't do anything. She was, you know, we were too big for that. So I was just writhing on the bed and crying and expecting, you know, the worst. My father came in and saved the day. He stopped my brother, you know. No. He just held him, you know. And I always remember that, because who knows what would have happened, you know. But I was saved, you know. There's other places where Krishna stepped in and saved me. I won't tell you the stories. But there are instances where, you know, tragedies happen in families, and, you know, like that. So that's the nature of the material world. You're going along, you think you have it together, you know, and then something happens. Some flood comes. What is this atmospheric river, you know, is coming now? I have my nice house up on the hill there, and now it just come down with the mud, you know, that's happening up north. What can you do against that, you know? And adi-daivik miseries. Or you're living, you know, like this Ukraine thing, you know, they had together, suddenly there's an army coming across the border. Oh my God. Or in Israel, I can't even think about Israel. It's just too much. So that's the nature of the material world. So, but we learn in Bhagavad Gita, we learn in Krishna, there is another world. That this is not the only world, this is not the only life we have. That if we take to Krishna consciousness with sincerity and determination, we can make progress out of this situation. I always put it that way, because it seems inconceivable to actually go home back to God in one life, but we should try. And Krishna promises, Neha bhikkamanashati pratyavayana vidyate. There's no loss or diminution in this process. Whatever you accomplish in this one life is to your eternal credit. Whereas anything material you may accumulate is gone, is taken away. That's why these multi-millionaires, billionaires, I just laugh at them. That's like, you know, better to be a poor farmer somewhere, you know. And now I've got all these billions, and now I'm 85 years old, and all the doctors, they tried theirs, but, you know, I spend millions on my, you know. But it's happening. You're losing it. You're losing your life, you know. And all of that stays behind you. And what you have is all the karma that you're recurring for to getting those billions, you know. You got to step all over all kinds of people, you know. So the simple bhakta, you know, who's in the ashram or living a simple life, you know, in practice, is in much better shape than the billionaires, because they're got to pay for those billions. All the people they cheated, and taxes, you know, and whatever, you know. So therefore, trying to make a solution in this material world where you can have any security or happiness is foolish. It's always going to be defeated, because the time will destroy everything. What does Krishna say? You don't even have to learn a verse. 4 words. Mrityu sarva haras chaham. As death, I take everything away. It doesn't mean you die. As a soul, you go on living. But everything you got attached to in this lifetime is taken away. What's happening? Then you come back again, it's another form, and the karma, and you're trapped. And that's been our fate for so long. So now here, Krishna is describing this verse again. Yehi sansparjita bhoga dukkha yone evate. That sense pleasures are the source of misery. You see? So if that's all we know, then that's depressing. Then how am I going to enjoy? That's all the only way. You know, they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not take pleasure there. In the previous verse, it said, "Bhaya sparsha asaktatma vindityatmana yatsukam." Learn how to taste the pleasure within. In other words, contact Krishna, who's in your heart, by the process of bhakti, and begin to experience the wonderful pleasure of bhakti rasa. Even beginners can understand some of that. You see? Sabram yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute, and begin tasting that pleasure that doesn't end. It doesn't end in time, and it's also ever expanding. And so that's what we should strive for. And then this verse from Rishabdev, I kind of put it with a little adaptation, into a poem, which is what he's saying. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend, and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. That's the whole program there. But to take it up, we have to be serious, because we have so many bad habits and so many conditionings. But fortunately, Lord Chaitanya's come, Krishna's come as Lord Chaitanya to give us this most powerful means of counteracting our conditioning. And he says right in that first verse of the Shikshastika, Cheto darbana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. Now that first line is progressive. It says, by this congregational chanting, Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, getting together, chanting the holy name, and then japa also, they complement each other. So Cheto Darpanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, by that process of polishing the mirror of the heart, you extinguish the blazing fire of material life. Wow. That, the yogis try to practice for many births to do that. Just by that chanting, you're extinguishing. Because it's a very powerful way to break the attachments that are keeping us bound birth after birth, and purifying that and becoming attached to Krishna. Just the holy name. The holy name is non-different from Krishna. Krishna is all attractive. So if we chant that holy name with sincerity and concentration and determination, we'll become attracted to Krishna by becoming attracted to his holy name. And that means attracted to Krishna's devotees, attracted to the form, the service, everything related to Krishna. That's what bhakti is. So I'm just going to finish the verse, and I'll let you. So then what happens? Shreya Kaidava Chandrikavataranam. So this congregational chanting is the waxing moon. Here, take just hold on to it. So it is the waxing moon that causes the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl, both for yourself and for others who come in contact. That's why this public chanting is so nice, Shreya Kaidava. Shreya is good fortune. Kaidava is a kind of lotus flower that blooms at night. Chandrikavatananam. And then Vidyavadhu Jivanam. That the knowledge, this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, all knowledge of Krishna, it's already there in our heart. If we become purified, we're also getting that knowledge from within. Or in another way, we become eager to hear the knowledge from Krishna, from the books, from the realized souls. That desire to hear, that's all important. So from the chanting, you go, wow, what am I feeling? Where is it coming from? Oh, read the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find out. So then, Anandam Buddhivardhanam. So then he says, this congregational chanting, it's all about the congregational chanting. It causes the ocean of bliss to expand beyond its bounds. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. And Pratipadam Purnamitasvadanam. At every step, you can taste the happiness for which we're always being hankering, you see. You can't do that on the material side. There's so many gaps between when you're trying to enjoy the senses, right? So, but here it says every step, just like the Goswamis, perfect examples. The Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, right, and Raghunath Das also, they were all really wealthy. Rupa and Sanatan were actually wealthy, and Raghunath Das was scheduled to inherit billions of dollars, the wealthy zamindars, He didn't want any part of it. He was always trying to escape and go to Lord Chaitanya. Finally, he succeeded. And he became the emblem of renunciation. Amongst all the Goswamis who were incredible, he was the most renounced. So, but Rupa and Sanatan they were already ensconced in the government. Rupa Goswami cashed out, in order to go to Vrindavan. He had a whole boat full of gold. You know how much that's worth today? Every ounce is worth $2,000. And he had tons. What did he do with it? He gave it away. He gave 25% to the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas. 50%. And then he gave 25% to his relatives, because Prabhupada says they expect something. They can cause a lot of trouble, so you can have, that's a lot of money. And 25% he put aside in an emergency, and his brother used it to bribe the jailer so he could get out, you see. So they took up a life in Vrindavan that was the emblem of austerity and renunciation, But they had the greatest treasure. And so it's a Tyaktva Turna Mashesha Mandala Patishening Sadat Tuchavat. Every word is so important. So they gave up, Tyaktva, renounced. Tyaktva Turnam, without hesitation, immediately, as soon as Lord Chaitanya asked them, and they surrendered to him. Ashesha Mandala, endless influence amongst the aristocracy and all of, the money. Ashesha Mandala Badi Sadat Tuchavat, as completely insignificant. And what did they do? Budva Dina Ganeshika, in order to help the wretched of the earth, ourselves, Dina, Gana, Ganeshika, Kadunaya, out of their mercy, they took up the role of mendicants in Vrindavan, Goswamis. And of course they wrote so many things, and they preached, and they excavated places of pilgrimage, and they, when wealthy, pious devotees would come to Vrindavan, they would say, "What can we do for you?" "Well, I don't need anything from you, but you can build a temple." And they all had built temples, Madan Mohan temple is the first temple Sanatan built, and Radha Govinda temple, Rupa Goswami. So then how did they survive? They came from the wealthiest down to the most austere you can imagine. They didn't even have their own tree to live under. They lived under a different tree each night, no house. And they would beg food from, and eat the simple food that they could get begging. And they would pick up used clothes and wash them, make them very clean and everything. Who can imagine like that today? But that's what they were doing. But the reason why they could do it is because they were experiencing the highest possible pleasure that you can experience. Gopi bhava rasam tabda lahari kalola magno muhur. Again and again, they're diving and drinking of the ocean of the highest pleasure, the gopis' love for Krishna. And they wrote so many things like that. So this is proof that there is a way of enjoying that doesn't depend on all of these externals, You can live as simply as possible, but still enjoy like anything. And these are our great leaders. Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Devotion is that's our guidebook. So here Krishna is giving a little hint of that, and he's saying, so is Vrishabdev with his strong words. Tapo divyam. Don't struggle so hard for sense gratification, which is available to the lowest animals. Don't waste your human life. Nayam deva nriloke nara. As human beings, you have a responsibility to and the opportunity to get out of this whole syndrome we've been in millions of years. Kṛṣṇa kama means struggling very hard for the object of the senses which are available to the hogs. Rather, tapo divyam, very important phrase. As Prabhupada would call always austerities and penances. He mentions penances here. Penances for him is a synonym for austerities. So, but it has to be divyam. They have to be geared toward transcendental goals. Otherwise, Hiranyakashipu, he was more austere than anybody. He performed austerities we can't even imagine. And we'll get into it. But it was all for demonic means, so he would become so powerful, he would rule the universe. And ultimately, he's killed by Krishna. So it has to be tapasya. It's good for you, tapas. His name is Tapas. But divyam, divine, not tantric, to get power in your enemies. No. Tapo divyam, O sons, by which sattvam shuddhyed, your existence will become purified. And that will lead, from which brahma saukyam tvanantam, you will experience Brahma Sukha, the spiritual happiness, which is mentioned, which is anantam, which is endless, doesn't come to an end. So that's the deal. You have to give up your hog-like endeavors, take on the austerities under the guidance of the Shastra and the Guru, and by which you purify, and you'll be able to enjoy like anything, real happiness forever. So that's the idea, and so this is what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching, and Krishna's coming in. He talks more and more here near the end about Brahma Bhuta, about the Brahman happiness. That's also Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, that means always joyful. But we want not only Brahman, but we want the Supreme Personality. Brahman is the foundation. We are Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. Krishna is Brahman, he's Para Brahman, we are Anu Brahman. So our natural relationship needs to be revived after all these eons. And that comes from, in this age especially, chanting the holy name and following the process of bhakti, which are ultimately not that hard. It's not like the 6th chapter. Okay, go alone to a sacred place in the mountains, sit like this all day, and control your breathing, and think right here, concentrate right here. How long can you do that? Where's the kirtan, right? No, so Arjuna says, I can't do it, Chanchalami Mana Krishna, the mind is too restless, it's like trying to control a hurricane. So Krishna says, yes, it's difficult, but you can do it by practice. So Arjuna says eventually, well, what if I fail? I'll try to do that and I'll fail. I've given up my household life and my life as a Kshatriya, and I failed as a mendicant. Now what am I going to do? So at the end of the chapter, Krishna says, don't worry. Yogi nama pisarvesham madgatena taratmana shadhavam bhajadeyo mam samayukritamamata. The greatest yogis are those who are always thinking of me within their heart and relishing that relationship with me like that. So Arjuna is already a dear friend of Krishna. He says, oh, okay, thank God. Because he's okay. he's playing a role here, And then the middle 6 chapters come out, and the middle 6 chapters of the Gita are the most important. And in the 7th chapter, Krishna will say, all right, don't worry, you don't have to artificially control the mind like that. Maya sakta manaparta yogam. I'll now teach you how you can naturally get your mind attached to me. And by the process of bhakti yoga. You're not the Ashtanga yoga, you'll get all the benefits without all of the impossible austerities. We don't have to try. All right, it's getting a little late, so sorry I went over time. But we have time for 1 or 2 poems to sum everything up. So I gave you that one based on Rishabdev, but there's another one in the same mood. De hishte mangshududide abhimatam chajasra jaya sutadisha sadhama matam vimuncha pushyanisham chagaditam chanabhangatishtam vairagya raga rasiko bhavabhakti nishtam. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids and home. At every moment, see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. So the last line is a new one. I didn't do it justice, so I have to explain. Vairagya, raga. Get attached to detachment. You see? Vairagya, raga. The only way to do it is to become a rasika. Vairagya, raga, rasiko, bhavabhakti nishtam. Become someone who's qualified to relish the taste of bhakti rasa, the relation with Krishna. Then you can really become renounced. Then vairagya has power. Rasika, and by that, bhakti nishtam, become fixed, very determined in bhakti. That is the positive thing. On the other side, this body is just, a vehicle. It's an illusion to become attached to this body or any other physical body. And when you think of what it's really made of, Asti is the bones, monks is flesh, he's describing. No, that's not where we should become attracted to Krishna's spiritual body, which is not different from him. We're different from the body. Krishna is not different from his body. He's solid spirit. Deha dehi vibhagoyam neshvare vidyate kvachit. There's a verse like that. For the Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, there's no difference between the body and the self. But for us there is, thank God. We're pure spirit. All right, time for one more quick one. I never finished the Shikshastak. I'll give you that first verse. The whole movement depends on that. Cheto dapana marjanam bhava mahada vagni nirvapanam shreya kaida vachandika vatadanam vidyavadhu jivanam Anandam Budivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapadam Padam Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glory to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon and knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy name and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. So, if you can remember, get into YouTube and search for Dravida space Mayapur. And you see how I chanted this in 2005 in Mayapur in the big temple there. Here was Vyasaki, behind me was Indra, behind him was Radhanath Swami, next to him was Satyananda Swami, and who else did we have there? Our old friend Vrindavan Das, who's part of the community, he was there as a boy. And it was pretty, I didn't plan it, it just happened. And I didn't know they were making a movie of it, so it's been on YouTube. And for me, it's gone viral. It's only been 19 years, and I already have 20,000 hits. Haribol. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Actually, I have it on the mobile.
You have it on the mobile?
I put copy downloaded.
Okay.